Hello everybody and welcome to a slightly different reveal breakdown video here because we're not revealing a panel to play, the stat cards and tactics cards and things that we usually talk about in this series. Instead, we're talking about an update to the affiliation list, specifically the introduction of the new Mutants Affiliation. As they always do when the new box is released, they go ahead and they update the affiliation list so you know where they are. But I think in this particular case, there were a few curveballs here that we weren't really expecting from some of these models, and I think it's worth talking about. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the affiliations for the new models, as well as the new Mutants affiliation and who is a member of that, because I think they made some really, really interesting decisions there. So yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, so right out the gate, we have the New Mutants. So the first one here alphabetically, unless I'm dumb and passed over one of the other ones. But the New Mutants affiliation is coming in with 7 models, brand new affiliation. So that's pretty good. I mean, they're already more than double Sentinels right underneath them. So that's a strong start, but they made some really, really interesting choices. Now, I'm going to be the first to say most of my knowledge of New Mutants is secondhand information. Alex, who's a regular of the channel, he's kind of our local comics guy, so most of the information I'm getting is coming from him, so if that's incorrect, get mad at him. No, he's not in this video, don't get mad at him. But please do correct me in the comments, because I'm very curious to know if my comic information here is incorrect, because they definitely made some choices that I didn't see coming based on what I thought I knew about New Mutants. So for starters, we already knew Magic was going to be the leader. It is a tactics card leadership, notably, so that's going to be relatively important. But yeah, then we also, of course, we were expecting Sunspot and Warlock to be affiliated because, I mean, that's what the affiliation is releasing with, so I would hope so. So they're both going to be there as well. And then we get into the models we didn't know about. So Cable, Emma Frost, Shadowcat, and X-23. And I think there was some really, really interesting choices here made that, honestly, I'm a little disappointed by some of them. But I do think they made some cool ones here as well. So let's kind of talk about them just kind of character by character. The first one I'm going to talk about is Emma Frost, because this is the only one on the list that we actually kind of expected in my local group, and that is just because apparently Emma Frost was a leader of the team for a very brief period of time. So yeah, makes total sense. Include her there as well. Another temporary leader of the team that we were really hoping was going to be on the list because we think he would have been really, really cool with their leadership was going to be Magneto, but unfortunately it looks like they chose not to include him, whether that's for balance reasons or, maybe it was too much of a deep cut or something like that. I don't know, but unfortunately they chose not to include him here, which I think would have been really cool. It would have given him a second home because he doesn't really see any play in Cabal, which is currently his second home, and I honestly think he would have been great under that leadership. So a little bit of a shame to see that didn't happen, but it is what it is. The next one my group was kind of expecting was X-23. Now, the logic behind that, though, was because we were expecting Honey Badger, because Honey Badger apparently was an actual member of the New Mutants. Weirdly enough, they chose not to include Honey Badger, but instead included X-23. Now, we were kind of thinking, okay, they'll include Honey Badger because Honey Badger was a member, and then to buff out the affiliation, they'll include X-23 by extension, right? Put them together, makes sense. But they went the opposite route of that. They just included X-23. Now, we think that might have been because of maybe a balance thing of like they're worried about taunt characters with that leadership being really, really strong. I can kind of see that. I don't think Honey Badger would have broken anything. I actually think Honey Badger would have been a great addition to this team, but is what it is. They chose to include X-23, who is still a great model. So yeah, that's a really good point in their favor right there. All right, so the other two members on the list that they included here are Shadowcat and Cable, and I didn't remember them from our discussions at locals being potential members of the squad, so I did decide to look it up, and it turns out they were both members of the New Mutants affiliation, so that actually makes a lot of sense to include both of them, but I also think it's really valuable that both of these characters are here because both of them having that ability to add extra dice to other models' defense is really, really useful for this team, which has a lot of characters that are relatively squishy. Notably, their leader is kind of known for being a very squishy model. That's Magic's biggest downside. So having that extra little bit of defensive dice boosting here is going to be really, really helpful for Magic just to be able to keep her around a little bit longer, which is great. It's also going to be really, really solid for Sunspot and Warlock, both models that didn't have anything too crazy in the form of defensive tech, so being able to get those extra dice and survive a little bit more is going to be relatively valuable for them. So Definitely good choice there. As far as the leadership goes, I do think almost everyone on this list enjoys the leadership a fair bit. I mean, some of them definitely going to be more than others. Models like X-23, it's great for making sure X-23 stays in the fight, makes her harder to control. So that's always nice to see. Some of the other inclusions here, though, like Shadowcat and Cable, being able to just kind of teleport them in and be like, okay, on your second attack, we're giving a bunch of extra dice to whoever that the target is. Really nice to have. Can set up some kind of cool area attacks and things for Cable as well, which is kind of neat. Emma, it could potentially be interesting. I saw someone kind of tossing around the idea of like, okay, maybe diamond form isn't as bad here because you have that ability of getting yourself into the fight because, normally Emma tries to stay back when she's not in diamond form at least. So now, you switch to diamond form, you get into the middle of the fight with the leadership, and then now you can actually like fight. So maybe it's an interesting place for her. I'm still a little on the fence about whether or not Emma's actually going to be all that great there. But yeah, it was just really interesting to see kind of the limited selection here. Notably, the fact that we didn't get, as I mentioned, Honey Badger. That is definitely disappointing. And I will actually throw out there, though, I am looking at this list that I found, and I'm just going off of Wikipedia for this one. But X-23 was a member at one point as well, apparently, so it does make sense to include X-23, but I still really think they should have included Honey Badger. It just would have made a lot of sense to have done so, but it is what it is. But yeah, other members like Professor X and Magneto have both been involved with the team. And I think it would have been cool to include both of them there. I mean, it also just would have been an affiliation that has both Professor X and Magneto, and that's kind of neat. I don't think Professor X would actually see a crazy amount of play there. He doesn't care really for their leadership or anything like that, but it would have been cool to have him. And Magneto, like I already said, I just think he would have been really interesting here. So it was a little disappointing to see that neither was included. But yeah, it is definitely an interesting team. I still think they're a little bit on the squishy side, so you're definitely going to want to splash in something like, a taunter. Like if you want to go on theme, probably Colossus or Honey Badger. Something like Luke Cage is probably really good as well. So something like that is going to be really good with their leadership. And unfortunately, they don't have one affiliated, but that's still probably pretty good. So yeah, I think it's an interesting team though. They did some cool things there. All right, so on the next page of the document, there's a couple things. One we definitely expected. Weapon X has Maverick and Weapon X. Shocker. We all kind of saw that coming. I mean, that box is literally labeled as the Weapon X box, I'm pretty sure. At least by most people, it's kind of being referred to as that. I think we knew both of those characters were going to be there. But what's really interesting about this page of the document is the Uncanny X-Men affiliation, which, you'll notice, has absolutely no blue text on it, meaning none of the new revealed models made it into X-Men. Personally, I was 100% expecting Sunspot. That completely threw me for a loop there. The rest of them, okay, I can see it, but not getting Sunspot is surprising. I also kind of expected Warlock. I didn't think he was an auto include, but it would have made sense to have him there. But that one is kind of a, coin flip sort of thing. But Sunspot, I'm amazed they didn't choose to include him here. Maybe they thought like under Storm or something he would be too good. I'm not sure. Maybe they just really wanted to push him being played in New Mutants to get the benefits of the mobility thing, because that wasn't the only affiliation that they did put him in. These models are a part of one other affiliation, and that is X-Force. Which has now picked up both Sunspot and Warlock. And yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonably valuable inclusion for them. Gives them a couple more, or gives them another energy attacker, which is kind of cool, or a couple more. Yeah, Warlock has one too. So a couple more energy attackers is pretty cool for them. But yeah, I don't have too much like input on how much value they're going to get out of the X-Force things. I think really it's just more of a giving X-Force more options rather than, oh, Sunspot is super like unique and interesting there. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm missing something. But yeah, I think it's more of a giving X-Force options thing, although come to think of it. Okay, so there is one really cool kind of tech thing. I don't know how good this is, but it's at least cool. Cat and mouse is a thing that exists that allows you to place an X-Force character within two of its current position. So when you do that, Sunspot will gain a flare if you choose to do that to Sunspot, because yeah, that is a movement. So that could be interesting if you really want to get that flare generation going early. I don't know if it's worth more than being able to shoot twice with cable, which is really, really good. Or potentially some of the other kind of shenanigans that X-Force can do with that card. But it is really, really interesting. So props to that. That is definitely a cool combo that yeah, I think that's pretty neat. So that's definitely one point in the favor of being on X-Force Forum there. But yeah, overall, I just think it's just an extra place they decided to include them. I don't think there's anything too crazy about either of them there. But still, glad to see that they're not single affiliation models. I'm always a little disappointed when we get those, like in the case of Weapon X and Maverick here, where it's just like, personally, I really like to see models in more than one place. I just think it makes it really interesting. You get to kind of play that game of like, okay, I really like this model. Do I like them more here or here? Sometimes it's obvious, sometimes it's not. But yeah, that's a slight letdown with this box. Not that I was really expecting much more than that for either of them. But the Sunspot Warlock box is not only bringing out its own affiliation, but they are also included in X-Force. Again, still just weird to me that neither of them are included in X-Men. That feels wrong. But I don't know. Again, I'm not a huge comic expert on these characters, so maybe it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it seemed like it made sense, but maybe I'm totally off base here, and you guys will yell at me in the comics or comments. I keep saying I keep mixing up comments and comics. I'm doing words real good today, guys. But you guys will yell at me in the comments that I'm totally wrong, and the comics say otherwise. But yeah. Definitely interesting choices made here. I think with all of the options here, I have kind of now that I've actually taken the time to look up the New Mutants list myself and just their wiki page, and seen that all of these characters were at one point New Mutants, that definitely cools me a little bit on the characters that they chose not to include, even though I think they would have been really interesting inclusions, and I don't think they would have made New Mutants broken, but maybe I'm wrong. Definitely let me know what you guys think down below. Are you guys happy with the affiliations for these new characters? Would you like to see different ones or more? Very curious to hear what you guys think and how you guys are feeling, and also let me know what you guys think of doing reveal breakdowns on affiliation list updates. I don't think it's going to be a regular thing. I think this one in particular was a little bit more interesting. It had a new affiliation, it had some models in places we didn't expect them, so personally I felt that this one was a little bit more interesting of an affiliation reveal, but usually I don't do breakdowns on these because I don't find there's as much to talk about. But if it is something you guys would like to see going forward, we can definitely make that happen. But that is going to do it for this one. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do drop a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. We do breakdowns on, well, now these, but also whenever characters and things like that are revealed. We also have battle reports and things like that on the weekends and more discussion-oriented content during the weekdays. So if you're a fan of any of that stuff, feel free to jump on in. But that's going to do it for me. So until next time, have a great day, everybody. Peace.